Hello and welcome to Out of This World. I'm Jamie Hanshaw, and we are going out of this world today. We're going trans-Plutonian, and I'm so excited because joining me is the one and only Isaac Weishaupt.
Hey, what's up, Jamie? I'm
I'm
so happy to be on here and link up with you again. Thank you.
I'm super excited because you're one of the only shows that we listen to regularly, and our
Oh, I'm
research and
sorry.
our our subjects are so parallel. We've been fans of yours for a long time. And so I'm really excited. This is the first time we're doing
Sure.
collaboration, just you and me.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, I think you've been there's this sort of idea of niching down in the world of conspiracy, and the one that you're interested in, I'm interested in, and Jay is this sort of pop culture blending in with spirituality kind of thing. And I guess like the reason I am into it is because it feels, I don't know, it feels like the most sort of real conspiracy to me, and there's so much to learn. And I really enjoyed the learning aspect of it. So yeah, it's been fascinating to me for years and years and years. So
Well, I felt that pop culture was the ultimate sort of bridge to introducing people to topics that I wanted them to be aware of. You can't jump right into Federal Reserve or all those like heavy things, but you can get somebody to talk about Beyonce or Britney Spears or movies or
yes,
TV shows. So
yes.
but today I thought we could talk about something that you have done shows on and I have been talking about recently is the Scarlet Woman.
hmm Right.
And
Yeah, that's a good topic. It's a big one, and I've got a, I don't know if it's an introductory sort of walkthrough, but it's um it's it's a sort of, I don't know if it's a, my notes on the subject sort of walk through the common understanding of the Whore of Babylon or the Scarlet Woman, and then walks into the occult background, and then some pop culture examples of how you see it manifest in symbolism in all our favorite celebrities and Beyonce and all this stuff.
Mhm. um, so I just got finished rereading Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God. And so obviously the Scarlet Woman has a lot to do with Thelema, the magic practice of Thelema. And in there, they are describing a new kind of goddess. And they say that the Scarlet Woman is anybody who really like adheres to these principles, right? Anybody could be that. Um, Obviously, they put those symbols on to the pop stars a lot, especially the divas. The Scarlet Woman imagery and colors and everything. But this is something that is tied into the women's sexual revolution and the current waves of feminism that we are experiencing right now. It is an expression of what the Thelemites call the formula of new Isis, which is it's NU, but it's like the new Isis, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they say that this is like nature, which is purged from the false ideas of ethics, morality, or laws. And so New Isis is supposed to be this circuit of polarity. They talk a lot about the Ophidian current. Have you ever heard of that before?
Is that like the Gnostic Ophites, I think they call
No,
themselves?
this is just like the use of sexual polarity and sex magic to manifest things.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm familiar
Well,
with the concept. I didn't know there was a term for that. What was that current again?
Ophidian current,
Oh, interesting.
right?
Is that from, because I'm just starting to read Kenneth Grant's actual books
Uh-huh.
for the first time. I've referenced them, and I knew about Kenneth Grant's works through Peter Levenda's books because I've read several of his books, and I like you know how this is when you try to read these occult books. I just wasn't ready yet because it takes you so many years of trying to wrap your head around what they're talking about. And Peter Levenda was a good bridge for me because he sort of presented it, and even his books are a little difficult to understand at times. And I finally started reading Kenneth Grant's Outside the Circles of Time because that's the first book I'm starting with in the Typhonian trilogies.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, how's your mental health after because it's not good, right?
It's hard to read.
Yeah.
It's difficult to read. I as far as it taking me to a dark place, I'm only on page, I don't know, 70, but it takes forever to read because it's just so dense. I mean, some of these books I've read, I can speed read through them, especially, autobiographies are a piece of cake, stuff like that. But um man, the Kenneth Grant stuff, I mean, I'll have to read one page two or three times sometimes to try to understand what he's saying because I'm trying to understand his perspective on the atomic bomb testing and as it relates to Twin Peaks. That's
Oh,
that's that's why I started with that book. I know it's like, I don't even know, the fifth or sixth book in the trilogies. Um and the Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, that's Kenneth Grant, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's like in the first trilogy, I think.
Mhm.
I should probably go into that one next.
Yeah, so I did a whole lecture on that total book on Rockfin for you guys if you're interested. So that one, so Kenneth Grant, just for catching up everybody who's just joining us, is somebody who took over the OTO after Aleister Crowley, and it kind of branched off, and they started calling it the Typhonian OTO, right? The Toto,
Mhm.
and it was like primarily about the left-hand path, the the dark uh black magic, right?
Mhm.
And so I did Aleister Crowley and Hidden God, and that one was hard to read because there was a lot of Sanskrit words in it. So at least a quarter of the volume of the book is the glossary of Sanskrit language that you have to like look up what all these words mean. But it's all about like using yoga and tantra and bodily fluids. And one of the tenets of these magical rituals, and something that the Scarlet Woman embodies, is childlessness. And I
Oh,
thought,
interesting.
yeah. So anybody could be considered a virgin in these rituals if she had not had any children yet, even though she wasn't actually a virgin.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so and I would like to unpack that a little bit more with you because I know you've researched um the kind of the more historical perspectives on some of these things because like for me, I like on a personal level, I'm socially pretty liberal and then like me and my wife, we don't have kids and like we don't want kids. And so like I kind of um am a sort of product of this new age Aeon of Horus kind of thing, I think, in a way, because I'm drawn to all these dark arts and I've got um you know, personal interests that maybe fit into this big agenda, this big occult agenda, which and that's like the sort of struggle I go back and forth within my own head, trying to understand, um, well, why do I believe these things, and is this correct, or because you could talk me to either side of this, because I'm an Orthodox Christian, as is my wife, and we question a lot of the church teachings. Not a lot. We question some of the church teachings, as I think most people should do. You shouldn't have blind faith. You should have faith. Um, but there's certain elements, like I don't know the history of feminism. Like I really don't.
Mhm.
But on the surface, like if I take my sort of tinfoil hat off, people say, "Are you a feminist?" And I'd say, "Well, if we're talking about let's make sure women are treated equally to men, absolutely. Yeah. Like, why is that even a question?" But then when you start unpeeling this, because I've just heard bits and pieces of it because I haven't done like a full study deep dive. In fact, I bought a book. Um, man, I don't remember where I saw her. I think you or Jay or both of you interviewed her.
Rachel
She wrote,
Wilson.
I
Is it?
think that's it. Yeah, yeah. It has a book about occult and the feminine movement and stuff like that. I just haven't read it yet. But it's a fascinating idea, and to hear what you were saying about the Scarlet Woman, because I do believe that we are. It feels like, and this could be the occult conspiracy that they're trying to make this new age that we're living in fit into Aleister Crowley's vision of the new Aeon of Horus.
Mhm.
So either Crowley was a prophet and he knew this was coming and he ushered in the changes to make it happen, or he said that he was going to bring in this new age, and then all of these people in high up positions who are occultists and want to bring about an age like that are doing their best to, you know, saturate our pop culture and our understanding of the world to fit into Aleister Crowley's paradigm, and therefore destroy the Christian religion, you know, which
Hmm.
was always their aim.
Hmm. Which is
Um,
also the aim of big movements like communism, like
yeah, that's true.
feminism.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always like an attack on Christianity through the doors of equality and liberty and freedom and democracy and a lot of these things that they try to sell you that, go nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly where my sort of paradoxical struggle lies, because there's some elements of socialism that appeal to me and there's elements of capitalism that I do not like.
Hmm.
Ultimately, if you forced me to take a position, I would say, like, no, I think the free market capitalist way is kind of the best. I mean, I definitely wouldn't advocate for communism. I definitely wouldn't advocate for fascism. Um, I would say what we got going, while albeit it's definitely not perfect, it's about as good as you're going to get, because I think when it comes down to it, humans by nature are generally going to be greedy, and you have to leverage that into a society so that the economy and the way things work um kind of motivates people to work harder. So I'm not on board with a lot of things, but I'm open-minded enough, and I'm warmed up enough that, like, for instance, I'm reading a book by David McGowan right now. The hell was it called? The F oh, I can't. I got books scattered all over this place. It's called, like, the F word, or understanding the F word.
Uh-huh.
And he's laying out an argument that in America we actually are living in a fascist government.
Hmm.
And and he makes a lot of sense. And I guess the idea that maybe he's saying is it's a sort of a bait and switch where they say, "Hey, look, America, this is capitalism, free market, blah blah blah." And then in reality, it's not really that. So,
Well,
yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'm not trying to derail the subject at hand, but it is a fascinating subject to talking about the Scarlet Woman and the role in feminism and all those things.
the reason I think that the elite are drawn to Thelema and Crowleyism and those things, black magic and demons aside, is that the the paradigm of that is that the slaves serve the magicians. And I think that fits into the globalist mindset very well. So like if you take liberals, for example, that's like the proclamation of how a society or how they would like to see society be is very stratified, very like social Darwinistic type of way of being where you just have two uh extreme classes and the slaves will serve, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that was the one where he talks about social Darwinism stuff, which fits into the Church of Satan. With he makes a commandment or something on there on the Liber Oz document about man has the right to kill those who would go against another man's will or something like that. And that's a very much a um, I mean, in my perspective, that kind of slides more into the libertarian angle, where um, if you find the need to sort of punish anyone who goes against you, like, that's your right to do so. Um, but yeah, the whole Libra Oz thing, and that takes you down a rabbit hole too of Wizard of Oz and stuff like that. I've done a few shows on Wizard of Oz. That's a fascinating subject, with the theosophy and things like that. Uh, but the to go back to, I don't want to lose my train of thought. We were talking about the Scarlet Woman. Oh goodness,
So I just did a
I lost
show.
my spot.
That's okay. While you're looking for it, I'll explain. We were talking about Beyonce at the beginning of this week, and I did go to her 3-hour movie experience of her concert, and this is what we got, as a little prize. You see that
Oh,
for attending the live show?
yeah, yeah. She
So.
She looks like that false Maria, right? Is that what I'm looking at from Metropolis?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
We went over Metropolis. We were talking about technocracy, transhumanism, the hive mind, because she's the queen bee, right?
Right, right. And the bee is the symbol for magic and things like this.
Yeah, we talked a lot about bees, and then even the letter B, how they call her bee or queen bee. That in Hebrew is Bet or Beth, right? That's one of the pillars of the twin pillars, has the
Oh,
B on it,
okay.
right?
Oh, okay.
And
Like Boaz and
Boaz and
Yakin.
Jachin, yeah.
Yakin.
And
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
this symbolizes a house or a womb, a goddess. The tarot card La Pepessa was also the female pope, and she was usually depicted with dark skin, crowned with a triple tiara, and the moon sitting on the throne between the black and white pillars. And it was interesting that you said reading Kenneth Grant led you to talking or trying to research more about the Black Madonna.
Yeah, yeah, and that is so from what I understand, this sort of um what would you call it? The exoteric version of that would be they found different depictions of the Virgin Mary and her skin was dark
Hmm.
in various, I don't know, countries or whatever. I guess that's
Hmm.
like the very short version of it. To me, there's an occult version of things, much like the beloved Twin Peaks. You've got the White Lodge and the Black Lodge,
Yeah.
and I wonder if it's not like there's not some kind of occult. I haven't dug into this yet, so I'm speaking completely out of opinion here. That if there's not some perspective of worshiping this sort of dark side of the Theotokos, as they call it in the Orthodox Church,
Hmm.
the Virgin Mary,
Hmm.
because that seems to be the angle that I constantly come across as this perversion of Christianity. Like they do pick on the Christians exclusively.
Hmm.
It seems to be the thing, and even Aleister Crowley talked about it, and Jack Parsons talked about it. They flat out, and Helena Blavatsky, they all flat out say it that Christianity is the real problem.
Right.
And in that metropolis, that I don't want to, I don't want to skip past the Metropolis connection there because that film, for people who aren't aware, it goes back to I think the 1927. It's a
Yeah.
German film.
German
And
expressionist film, which is very heavily influenced by Satanism. German
oh,
expression.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Hmm.
Those Germans are dark. I'm mostly German myself. I come from a very um heavily German area of Pennsylvania.
Well, I
But
just did a show called Tiny Mustache Man, the Black Magician.
oh, really? What's that?
Well, you know who that is, right? Tiny
Uh-uh.
Mustache Man.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
yes,
So
we
it was
live in
all
the world
about
of
that
censorship.
group and their obsession with theosophy and Tantra.
Yeah, and those are some of the themes you constantly see is the Tantra, and Peter Levenda, he goes into this pretty deep into in the Dark Lord, and he talks about a lot of the things that you mentioned were in I think you said were in Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, the ideas of Tantra and different fluids used for different ritualistic purposes. Um, but the Metropolis movie, that you'll this is one of the and just like you mentioned, pop culture is a way of opening people's eyes to the ideas of these, of symbolism and the occult. And Metropolis is one of those examples because the movie itself it's about, there's one of these elites who is obsessed with science. Sounds like Elon Musk to me. And he hires this scientist to fuse a spirit into a robot, kind of Frankenstein type story, and or a Star Child if you follow Aleister Crowley's Moonchild novel. But it's the idea of fusing a spirit into an inanimate object, like a golem or something like that.
Hmm.
And they succeed in doing that, and this becomes the false Maria, and she is the whore of Babylon, duping all the men in the city and putting them in trances and enslaving them. And and in order to fuse the spirit into the robot, the scientist actually does a he does a bit of a blood sacrifice of his own hand to make the sort of uh, the soul fuse into the robot. But
Yeah.
anyways, the point being, you'll see in, as you already know, there's many examples in pop culture of this false Maria depiction.
Right.
And I think a lot of people aren't aware that it's happening. Like the Beyonce Renaissance imagery that you showed me there. Cardi B has done it.
Here's what you're talking about, Maria.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly it. And
And
you can see on the image the inverted pentagram.
yeah, and then you've got Beyonce on the other side looking exactly like her.
Yes.
And
So Beyonce.
even to the glove, like he cuts off his hand to animate the robot, right? And she was seen wearing this robotic glove to many events during that time.
Yes,
So,
yes, and Cardi B did it. I don't remember where. I remember she did it. Lady Gaga did it, and she also was depicted literally as the Whore of Babylon, sitting on top of a beast in Billboard magazine cover a couple years ago.
hmm
Whitney Houston was depicted as this.
hmm
Freddie
Bodyguard,
Mercury was
yes.
even.
In the Bodyguard, right? She had like
Oh, is
much,
that where that's from? I
yeah,
seen the image. I had no idea where it was from.
yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, we're talking
Why
about
was she wearing that in the Bodyguard? Do
it
you
was part
remember?
of her music video that she did in the movie because she was a pop star in the movie.
Oh, I didn't know. I never seen it.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. So the story is that she's like the world's biggest pop star and Kevin Costner is her bodyguard
Hmm.
as, you know, she
Okay.
goes through that. Um but so we're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about technocracy, we're talking about black magic and technology fusion, right? Um Black, not that black is bad, but in this way that they're using it, the Black Madonna is the inversion of the Theotokos, right?
Hmm. Very, very heretical, you know.
Yeah. And this is also linked to Isis, who's depicted with black skin a lot.
Oh, yeah, and that's another theme you'll come across with the occult studies
Hmm
is this obsession with depicting the female goddess, which I think is which all ties into this sort of Whore of Babylon discussion
hmm
and going all the way back to the book of Revelation where the vision that I guess it was John of Patmos who wrote the book of Revelation. He had this vision of a woman sitting on the scarlet beast, and she was blasphemous, and she wore purple and scarlet, and in her cup, she held a cup full of these abominations, and she drank the blood of the saints. And this is where a lot of to fast. That's where I think a lot of this comes from. A lot of this sort of idea of channeling this sort of, I don't know, archetype, I guess, from the occult is because they want to bring about the end times.
hmm
Much like there's some brand of some flavors of Christianity that also want to bring about the end times. And Aleister Crowley,
Yeah.
he was a dispensationalist, so he grew up, with that I don't know if Puritan's the right word, but like a Puritan Christian background of talking about the end days.
Yeah.
And then he went bad and he was like, oh, okay, well, I'm also going to sort of petition to manifest the end times as well, only
Yeah.
from the sort of dark side. Yeah.
Right. Um, Plymouth Brethren was his sect. It was like a very Quaker type,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay. That's probably much different than Puritan, I guess. I don't know.
And so, what a lot of people don't realize is that these black magic books, like we're talking about, is one of their goals is to contact extraterrestrial entities. So he talks a lot about the trans-Plutonian magic, which is like having to deal with planets outside of our solar system. Because in magic, you use a lot of like, Mars or Venus or Jupiter or Saturn. But what they are talking about is going beyond that out into the darkness and drawing in magic powers from way beyond, such as like Sirius, which is very important to
Mm.
them, right?
Right.
And the way that they are doing this is through sex, ritual, and inviting ETs to inhabit them and be born from them in the spirit world or in the physical realm. And they are very interested in the next generation being, they literally say mutants, like X-Men, people with supernatural powers. And it's interesting that the logo for X-Men is the circle and the X, which in that book they identify that as the mark of the beast. And so when you start seeing that, it's placed on X-Men, X-Files, SpaceX. I could go
Mm.
on. We don't have to talk about the O and the X a lot, but it is definitely about an ET invasion in the spiritual world. And I know you've done a lot of work on ETs and UFO.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things that got me into what I'm doing now because um the my background, I was born in 79, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I was really into aliens in the 90s with X-Files, and there was a cartoon on MTV, I think it was called The Head. I don't know, there was just little things that I was super into aliens. I thought it was really cool. Also the what was that terrifying movie with Robert uh no, Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Uh, so I grew up fascinated by all these things, and then and then I was really into Bill Cooper and David Icke. Those are my red pill daddies, and they always talked about aliens. And then, um, and I just always thought it was kind of innocent, fun research, kind of in a way. But then the more I dug into it, the more I realized that this is the underlying goal. And when I started blogging, well, so when I started blogging in 2011, I talked about aliens, ancient aliens, things like that. And to me, it was always sort of curious fun. Then, as I progressed through my research and wrote books and podcasted, and you can even read my first book I wrote in 2012. I had a totally different perspective on aliens than I do now. So almost every book I touch on the subject of aliens because it's always been of interest to me. And in 2017, I wrote a book called The Dark Path, and I talked about the alien agenda. And at that point, I had said, "Oh, there's going to be reading the quote from NASA chief scientist, she said, we're going to have proof of alien life by the year 2025." And as this always was weird to
Hmm.
me. And then in 2020, well, so like in 2019, I started writing an alien book, digging specifically into the occult aspect of aliens. And then in 2020, the videos were confirmed by the Pentagon about the Tic Tac and those UAP things. And I said, oh crap, I gotta hurry up. So I hustled up and I ended up writing two books on aliens called Aliens, UFOs, and the Occult, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. And in those, I focus specifically in on the occult history and ideas of what extraterrestrial life means and looks like and what the goals are, because it was a subject that you don't really see a lot of people devoting specific, like people will talk about it, like it's certainly not original information that I came up with, but you don't see a lot of people dig in deep on that particular aspect. I think the best resources that I had found were oftentimes very Christian leaning, which makes sense because there's a spiritual element to this. And but I wanted to kind of I wanted to make it a more, I don't know if neutral is the right term, but I wanted to present the information in a way that didn't seem like I was trying to sales pitch people into Christianity, because that's not my shtick. Like I'm just not like that in real life. I respect if people believe, don't believe. I mean, there's a million theories about what's really going on out there. That just happens to be mine. I was born into it. I believe it. I'm probably not the greatest ambassador of it, but I try to insert it where I can. But anyways, my point being is that when you look at the history of the occult and science, this has always been the goal, going all the way back to John Dee. This guy, he was in the Middle Ages. He worked for Queen Elizabeth doing occult practices of astrology and doing magic rituals to make contact with entities, which he called angels.
Hmm.
And and this is the basis of all occult attempts to make contact. This is he formulated what they call the Enochian language, and it's a angelic language that was believed to be the original language that God and Adam spoke with each other before he kicked them out of the garden. And the reason it's called Enochian is because I guess Enoch knew the language, and the language disappeared after he was taken by God. I don't know.
Hmm. And the Keys of Enoch was a magical text, right?
Oh, is that yeah? I'm not sure where that fits in. Is that
I think so.
like is that part of the language? I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the idea is that John Dee and Edward Kelly channeled information from these aliens or angels, and the angels said, "Here's the language, write this down." And it was this big grid of characters and such, and they would use that to do continuous workings or rituals, and they were able to successfully talk to all these angels and different aliens and crap. And one, they received several messages, and some of them were about how they were supposed to be the ones to push for the eschaton. They call it like immanentizing the eschaton, I mean bringing about the end times.
Hmm.
And he thought he was doing God's work. He was a Christian, and he thought he was doing God's work to bring about the end times because these angels were down there saying like, "Hey, you need to do this, and we're gonna unify all the religions of the world into one world religious state," which
Uh-huh.
is the theme we hear over and over and over.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, so there's a part in I read. I'm about halfway through this book, John Dee and the Empire of Angels by Jason Loeb,
Hmm.
and I just interviewed a guy named Jordan on my show where he finished the book a couple times, and he he walked me through the whole book, the main concepts, and it's really good. But in chapter 13, there's a chapter called "I Am the Daughter of Fortitude," where during one of the rituals, um, John Dee talked to this angel, and this angel was talking about how people were worshiping all these riches of material wealth instead of the riches that God gave us. And then another, using that same Enochian language, another angel came to him and told him to swap wives with Edward Kelly.
Hmm.
I mean, and all kinds of stuff happened. But one of the visions that they had was of the final stages of the apocalypse that they were supposed to bring about. And that was actually supposed to, I believe, get initiated from the wife swap, but John D. John D. couldn't get the job finished from what I read. And
Uh-huh.
the next day, Edward Kelly, who did in fact successfully sleep with John D's wife, got a vision of a man on a white horse with a
Hmm.
fiery spear, and he said, "This is the first horseman of the apocalypse." And then the whore of Babylon appeared to John D and Edward Kelly and says, "I am the daughter of fortitude." And from this, you get hundreds of years of occultism. Aleister Crowley used that same Enochian language uh, in what he called the Amalantra workings. I believe he did those rituals at Boleskine House in Scotland, where a bunch of weird stuff happened. And then he also did it in, I think it was New Hampshire, where he channeled Lamb, the first gray alien, in 1918, I think it was.
Hmm.
And then you already know from there, Jack Parsons does a similar alteration of the same working using the same Enochian language, and um, thought he incarnated the Whore of Babylon through Marjorie Cameron,
Hmm.
and so on, right? So
Who was
so
Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard's girlfriend, right?
yes, yeah, and this fits into the whole. We were talking about the false Maria and Metropolis
Hmm.
and using spirits and things like that because um the whole Babylon working ritual, they're the goal. Well, okay, so there's a couple interpretations from what I read in there's a Marjorie Cameron book. It's really good. It's called The Wormwood Star. And there's a couple interpretations of what they believe researchers believe could have been happening during the Babylon working. The one interpretation of this ritual was that it was just symbolic, and it was a more metaphysical exploration of pulling prophecies to foretell the changing times and wakening up the libido of the masses, and sort of what you would call high magic. And then a second interpretation would be the and this is held by the Agape Lodge inner circles. They thought that it was a literal manifestation, a literal physical birthing, where Jack was trying to create the moon child with this whore of Babylon, Marjorie Cameron, so
Hmm.
that this child could have the spirit of Babylon, which is the whore of Babylon, which would bring about the end times.
Hmm.
Um,
And
so
these are
and
the X-Men. These are the children. The moon children are the X-Men with supernatural powers.
oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you see in Arthur C. Clarke's
Yes.
Childhood's End too, right?
Yes,
You ever
and
seen that?
2001 Space Odyssey, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so we're talking about Scarlet Women who they found out that you can get a lot farther in magical workings if you have a woman to channel and medium for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Book of the Law was given through his wife, who didn't know anything about magic. She just spoke it. And
Yeah,
so
that's right. Yeah.
what we're seeing in this Ophidian current, this feminism, this rise of like OF and this whole revolution is like the women's function in the new Aeon. Kenneth Grant says more of her earthly vehicles will be prepared to propagate a race of magically generated beings able to probe extraterrestrial dimensions. All that cannot be assumed will be consumed. Sexual methods of establishing contact with entities um, more evolved than man is the goal of this.
Do you now? Surely you've seen the Katy Perry video for E.T. and Kanye
Of
West.
course. Yeah.
She
I
kind
was
of
gonna
shows us.
say you brought
Yeah.
up Babylon working in the desert. No, I'm not. That's L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that is when they had that vision of the Scarlet Woman riding a cat-like beast,
Mm, okay.
and
Yeah,
that
I don't remember. I get confused because I think he was Crowley was also doing rituals in the desert with Victor Norberg, but
exactly.
I think that was it gets so confusing about crossing the abyss or something like that.
Yeah, and so that's what we saw in the Katy Perry Super Bowl when she did the Scarlet Woman. So she came out riding the cat-like beast, the lion, which is actually of many goddesses of antiquity, Isis, Ishtar, Inanna. They are all depicted in um, stone riding a lion.
Yes, yeah, and that's what you see on the um I think it's the Crowley Tarot card for lust or something like
Yep.
that, with the chalice. And there's lots of, in the Super Bowl, of course, is a forte of ours, right?
Yeah,
We always cover symbolism on the Super Bowl,
yeah.
and there's so many examples of this line of thinking. You've got the big one, the most Googled term ever in history. I don't know if it's still the most searched image in history or not, but was when Justin Timberlake pulled Janet Jackson's nipple out,
Mm-hmm.
and on it was the eight-pointed star of Ishtar.
Mm-hmm.
Again, and there's just this, to sort of simplify it from what my understanding is, it's whether we're referring to Ishtar or Semiramis or the Scarlet Woman, it's all of this um sort of feminine archetype, feminine energy, or something like that, all reference with the goal of it all being the Whore of Babylon, which was more on the nose with Madonna's performance, where she came out in all black like Isis. She was the Black Madonna,
Yeah,
literally, in
yeah.
that. Shakira, she performed recently. She was wearing all red, which is like the Scarlet Woman wears all red. Um,
Rihanna's Super Bowl was all red.
yes, Rihanna too. Yes, and she did the. Oh, I don't know if you saw it. There was a when so for the Super Bowl, I will watch the performance and immediately put out a show, because people are looking for that kind of stuff, and I'll tell you like, hey, this is what I saw, or man, I don't know if I saw much. And the Rihanna one, I initially released a show and I said, there wasn't a ton there, guys. Like I can kind of stretch it and pretend that like, oh yeah, look at this, we got a pyramid here. Like sure, like It's something you could interpret, but to me, it's like, I don't know, maybe. And someone sent me afterwards, they sent me an image of Rihanna doing the rock diamond, which is the you know, Beyonce did this, and some people call it the triangular manifestation in ritual magic. In the OTO, they use it as the fire goddess
That
symbol.
yes, that's what I was looking up right now.
Yeah, like quite literally, it's the
Mhm.
symbol. And I said, and this is where it gets weird. I said, wait a minute, I watched that whole performance. I rewound the halftime performance. I watched it again. I said, I didn't see that at all. And then someone sent me a link. Yeah, that's the pose right there. That's the one I've seen. Yep. It's literally the same exact the
Yeah.
triangle.
So it says triangle manifestation, also the sign of the fire goddess Thum Aish Neith from Crowley's Liberesh Vel Helios. Also, Neith is a bee goddess,
Yeah, and
right?
there's a lot of OTO Beyonce symbolism.
I know I just did a 3 hour live on it this week.
Oh, did you? I'll
Yeah.
have to check that out. Um I did a show on I did a symbolism analysis of Black as King a few years ago,
Hmm.
and on that I referenced an article I read. um I got the hang on, let me find out. I want to attribute it correctly. Violet, oh boy, violetara.com. It's an article about Babylon and the Scarlet Goddess. And listen to how this person who wrote this article describes it. They say Babylon is described in her aspects as a natural force who embodies both the lust of the spirit and the liberation of human spirit. In sacred geometry, she is the feminine principle. Her equivalent is the flower of life. She is also an eternally fertile force equated to Mother Earth and Gaia. Dot, dot, dot. Move down a paragraph or two. In the animal kingdom, her incarnation is the queen bee, the mother of all bees in a hive. At the height of the productive season, a queen bee will mate and lay eggs continuously day and night. Without her, a colony will cease to continue surviving. Um, and that's obviously tied into the Freemasons use the bee symbolism as well. But to see the occult symbolism connection of the bee to the goddess, and then see Beyonce treated literally as such. The news articles will quite literally call her goddess.
Oh yeah.
It is interesting.
And then oracles also have bees. So this is called the Delphic omphalos. You see that? All the little bees on that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What's that from?
So this is from 330 BCE. Is in the Delphi Archaeological Museum at Greece, but the priestesses of Delphi, right? They were
Mhm.
known as like Melissas or queen bees.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Like the Oracle at Delphi.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, bees are really important to the occult and Freemasons, as you mentioned, because of the hive mind. So a perfect working society in order to them is going to run like a hive of bees who are, like connected, neural linked together. Um,
All right, right, right. Well, what I guess where I would go with the symbolism talk from the Super Bowl, because the short version of that is the Super Bowl is used as the highest sort of ritual there is because everyone's
mhm,
watching it.
mhm.
And it's interesting to me the changes that have been taking place. This is why I believe there's a conspiracy, because when when Beyonce showed us the Rock Diamond live on the Super Bowl in, I don't know what year it was, 2015 or something. It was a whole topic of conversation all over the place, YouTube, even the news are. I remember I was at work the next day and I heard a guy, you know, very much a normie talking about it. He's like, "Oh, did you see they're saying Beyonce's in the Illuminati?" Like I didn't talk to him, but I didn't engage because I try to keep my world separate. But I thought, well, that's interesting because talk about the Illuminati. That wasn't a very normal part of people's conversation
Right.
back then.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing happened. And then over the years, there's been tons of censorship, as you know. And then last year, when Rihanna performed, you have to watch the YouTube version of it to see her do that rock diamond, because when you watch it on the TV, which is the way I watched it, like an old person on my DVR, the the time she at the very end of the performance, she's rising up on this, riser, and she puts her hands up and does the rock sign, but she only holds it up there for maybe a second or
Mm-hmm.
two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's during those exact 1 or 2 seconds that the camera panned off of her and like zoomed way out so you couldn't see it. And then it zoomed right back in. And
Yeah.
I thought, they practiced this 1,000 times beforehand. They know exactly what she's going to do. Why did the TV not show us that? Why was that only on the YouTube version? I still don't have a good answer for that. I just find it very odd that they did that.
Because I think people are catching on too much and they just didn't want that to be in the consciousness, like, oh, Rihanna does it too. There's something behind it.
Yeah,
Like the
there's
same thing
something to
happened
it.
to me because I was watching for all of the symbols and I didn't see her do that either. And I saw it the way you did. Someone had captured it and posted it like on Twitter or something. I was like, oh, she did do something interesting
Yeah.
at least. Um, but yeah, and then after that, Beyonce came out with that song, with that line, like, y'all corny with that Illuminati mess. Like she even made
Right.
that part of one of her songs. Do you remember that?
Right, right. Yes, I do. Yeah, and I think is it's almost it seemed like maybe they were trying to push this symbolism out to the masses to sort of charge up the sigils. I don't know, like it depends on how crazy you want to get with it. And it caught on, and it caught on sufficiently enough for them to use it for what they were trying to do magically. And now they're doing it as part of the ritual, but they don't necessarily need us to see it because
Hmm.
now people talk about it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not really sure how to take that.
Yeah. Well, we only have a couple more minutes, so let's see, where do I want to go? New ISIS. So Kenneth Grant here is saying about like using Scarlet Women, and just FYI, you guys, all the women that they've used in these rituals ended up insane, um, with very bad endings because of they can't your psyche can't handle being demonized that much. But Kenneth Grant is saying man must resist the tendency to idolize particular manifestations of the beloved. So don't just love one girl. He says men must seek the essence, the impersonal soul of pure desire, which every woman embodies. So um, use women to fulfill your desires, anything but children. And this, what this Ophidian current is talking about, manifesting anything that you can think of or that you want that is outside of what naturally happens when you have sex, which is children, right?
Yeah.
So you're taking the life force that would become another person and you're channeling that energy. And there was even a girl, I don't know if you saw this on TikTok, who was talking about how you can use your abobo. We're gonna be on YouTube. Um,
I gotta get my translation dictionary. What is
yeah,
okay?
you know
All
what
right.
I'm talking about, right?
I don't okay, I think I know what you're talking about.
Unaliving the
Okay,
fetus.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you.
You
I'm
can
with you.
use that as your magical spell.
No
So,
way.
oh yeah.
See, that's dark. See, and that's where, like I said, I live in both of these worlds in a way. And then I hear stuff like this and I'm like, oh my gosh, why do we have to take it there? Why does why do we have to make it so that the satanic temple is the one endorsing these kinds of things, and it's I don't know. It's really tough to sort of make sense of it all. But if I put on my sort of Orthodox Christian hat and study the occult, it's like you're saying, man, it's kind of in there. So it's hard to deny that there's not I don't know if coordinated effort's the right term, but for lack of a better word, they're facilitating this to create a new world, is
Yeah.
what it seems like.
Yes, a new world where uh you'll have nothing, like the World Economic Forum wants you to have.
Yeah.
The people who, know these dark secrets and worship these old gods will have all of this magnetic power to enslave people who don't even know what's going on, and probably wouldn't even be able to read in the future. I mean, if you look at a lot of satanic literature like I do, it's like their society would consist of people who just are extensions of a tool. Like if a programmer wouldn't need his legs, so his DNA would be programmed to like not let him walk. I mean, this is the stuff
Mm.
that they're talking about going in transhumanism, right?
Yeah, totally. Yes. Yeah, it's like what's his name? Jonas Salk was talking about Survival of the Wisest, I think is the name of the book. It's this idea of I feel like they've always been into eugenics, and like this is the fancy way of doing it without the baggage of the history of the term. You know what I mean?
But it's not even eugenics, like, because that is like trying to make something good. This is dysgenics. It's like trying to make trolls and goblins,
Yeah.
right? And like homunculus creatures. It's not
Yeah.
right. So this new ISIS woman, this feminist woman, the revolutionized woman, uh, she's not going to be wanting any children. She's not going to be wanting any husbands, and the magician, the male magician, is not going to be wanting any wives. Um,
Well, you know what
and
I think is interesting, like some
uh,
commentary sort of on that. Um, it's interesting that in America, the way the economy is going, it seems like they are creating a world in which it supports these kinds of ways of thinking, you know.
mhm,
And I don't know who you blame for that. Do you blame government? Do you blame capitalism and corporations for not paying people enough? Because, for my wife and I, we've been together 20 some years, and it wasn't like we got together and we were both like, oh, we hate kids, we're not gonna have kids. It wasn't like that. It was always something. We're always behind the eight ball, and it was always like, okay, well, let me get through college, and then I can get a job that pays decent, so we can afford a decent home, and then we can worry about kids.
mhm,
And we just kept pushing it down the road because we were just so far behind, and then we finally bought a house, and the housing market crashed.
mhm,
And granted, these are all excuses, and my parents they gave birth to me when they lived in a crappy ass little apartment, so it could be a mixture of I was waiting for the perfect time and it just took too long. I don't know. We ended up trying a few times for a few months and it didn't happen, and we both were relieved every time when it didn't happen, and we were like, and then then I hit age 40 and I thought well, we both hit our 40s, I should
yeah.
say. And then it became more of a decision of, well, man, there's all these reasons not to do it now. There's like health reasons, which there's some suspect thinking behind that, because I actually read a lot of stuff about how, because they say, well, when you're over 40 as a female and you give birth, your percentage chances of different problems, they shoot up by X amount. And it's like some of the things they were talking about, it's like, okay, so and I'm no medical expert. Maybe we should avoid this topic altogether for where you're
Well,
going.
no, this is real talk though. Like it's not
Yeah.
just hypothetical situations, because not a lot of people are in a position in life where they're thinking, you know what would make this better? A baby.
Yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
That's
There's
well,
not a lot.
yes. The way to
So,
get me back on track there.
yeah.
The because look at I was watching a video comparing the economic situation for people who bought a home prior to, I think, 2020 versus people who bought one in the last year, and there's literally like two different experiences of life because the interest rate and the housing prices went so high. I mean, it's insane. And it just what I'm saying is it just seems like the way things are going, it supports some of these occult goals of like what you were saying. It's like people not wanting to get married, people not wanting to have kids. Um, it's a fascinating observation, is
Well,
all I'll say.
what we're witnessing is like the complete and total collapse of Riz and charisma, manners,
Yes.
romance, chivalry, love, uh,
Yeah.
like
I
all of
I
these
agree with you. Yes.
things. And people are just seeing each other as some kind of like widgets to get up on in life.
Yes. Yeah,
And
that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of young guys that I talk to, um, it seems like they've got a perspective that being married somehow makes you subservient in a way or unhappy. And I don't know how to explain it. it feels to me like getting married sort of makes you um a different person in a way. Where it used to be like you single and your partner single, then you come together, and now it's like you're sort of, I look at it as this is God's original intention, is abstracting from himself so he can see himself. And I would think that the natural extension after becoming one in marriage is to have children. I mean, I didn't do it, so like no shame on anyone who doesn't have kids. I get it. But I do feel like in a way, like my wife and I were not going to experience that miracle of life. And we both do sort of lament that in a way, but I also enjoy having a nap and going on vacation. So it's a tough call.
Well, I love kids. I love playing with them. I love being around them. I've never gotten pregnant. I don't know if I can. I don't
Yeah, and
I
and
don't
that
have
was
birth
kind of me
control or
and my
anything like
wife.
that. It just never happened. I
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
10 kids when I was young, but I guess.
yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap up here. So love under will, Thelema and all that is it's basically boils down to sex without procreation. Your true guardian angel, I'm not kidding you, in Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God is basically your boner. Tells you what to do.
Oh,
And
interesting.
this is what you follow in life. Um, and women, the Scarlet Women are going to lead this revolution of the new Aeon. The childlessness, and men are going to lead the whole idea of non-marriage.
Hmm.
And this is where we kind of have to pause, and I hope you'll come back because I want to keep talking, but I know we both don't have a lot of time today.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fascinating subject. I think this lays out some interesting ideas of where today's society is, and if it's not progressing towards these occult goals even further.
Yeah,
That
I was just gonna say, like, the biggest thing on Twitter in the past couple days was somebody posted Pierce Brosnan and his wife who has gained weight, and they're what, in their 60s now or something, and they're like, this is why you don't get married.
oh, gee,
And
see,
I'm like,
that's
but he looks
terrible.
obviously like the happiest dude in the world whenever he posts
Yeah.
pictures with his wife of decades. But all these unhappy men are just like, this is what happens when you get married. Is like, don't listen to unhappy people. Uh,
Yeah,
right.
totally. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of hurt people, they say hurt people, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of them out there. And I'm very much a hopeless romantic like my wife, and I get how people can get disenfranchised by all that. But I mean, to each their own. Everyone's got their own sort of path they go down. But yeah, I don't like seeing it either. I don't like
Yeah.
observing the men putting the women down the way they do, and this sort of weird cat fighting that's happening between the genders. But
So let's
yeah.
make a deal. You finish your Kenneth Grant book, and I'll do this one that I
As
have
long as
not
there's not
done.
a timeline,
Yeah.
I read 10 books at a time, and it's like I'll read
Okay.
5 pages, then switch to the other book. But yes, I will. I'm definitely finishing this book.
Okay, when you finish that one, I'll do this one and we'll come back and
Oh yeah,
compare
yeah.
notes.
He keeps referencing cults of the shadow in outside the circles of time.
Okay.
So yeah, that'd be great.
All right,
That'd be
awesome.
dope.
Well, thank you for coming, and this
Of
is
course.
just
Thank you.
part one of Isaac and Jamie.
There we go. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye bye.